Yes, thank you very much, Creepy City Robot, for giving me the ability to record this conversation with my buddy. What's up, guys? This is episode, I'm going to name it in post, of Wheelin and Dealin. I've been doing two side podcasts for these past couple weeks. I want to go back to the original project. And speaking of originals, we are here with the Windsor original, even though he's from Winnipeg. He's my boy from back in the day. We used to do improv together, musical chairs. He's actually a part of one of my closing bits. Literally, some of my closing bits where I say this is my buddy Cam who has no legs. So I thought I should put a face, give you guys a face to the name. So this is my boy, my brother from a very different mother. My boy Cameron Adamson. Everybody, give it up, Cameron Adamson. How you doing, man?
How's it going? Thank you for having me on the Wheelin and Dealing podcast.
I appreciate it, buddy. I appreciate it. So yeah, we like here's the thing. Cam and I did a bunch of shows back in the day. What we would do sometimes, and because again, as I mentioned in the intro, Cam doesn't have any legs, so we were talking off air. I said if only we could replace one of our body parts, because you can't tell it from his shirt, Cam's shirt there, but Cam's super jacked. Like I see him around town, like you know, galvanizing and pushing himself like his wheels and stuff, almost like a Rick Hansen kind of emotion. And I do not have those type of arms, and he doesn't have legs. So I said, if I just had his arms and he had my legs, we would still be a very physically inept person. So nothing would fucking change.
Yeah, I don't. I'll take my no legs over your legs. I would prefer having no legs to having. 'Cause it's not like I said you're not like you're not Usain Bolt. You're not
No,
running down Oled Avenue. So you got the motorized wheelchair for heaven's sakes.
yeah, but the battery has a shelf life. I have to charge it sometimes, depending on the terrain and how strenuous of a day I'm having with my travel.
Don't try not to kick your camera.
I'm not kicking my camera. I'm adjusting, dude. My camera is my laptop. If this goes well and if we start getting some views, then I'll upgrade my equipment.
Well, that's not an advertisement. Everybody, to the tens of people who will be watching this,
To
like
the
and
tens
comment,
and twenties of people, that's a fucking ringing endorsement.
like, comment, subscribe. For heaven's sakes, get Dave's Weekly Wheels some better equipment. I
yeah,
wanted to talk. I didn't use my cell phone.
I know that their kids are starving in other countries and they're literally mining for cobalt just so we can have a $50 cell phone. But the number one issue in the world is Dave Squeaky Wheels not having a non-computer microphone. I know that's you guys are losing so much fucking sleep over it.
I am every day, every night. I toss and turn.
Yeah, I know. I feel like when we were kids, because I think we have uh, a similar story in this regard, where everybody says, "Oh, you're gonna hit a growth spurt. You're gonna hit a growth spurt," and it just never happened for either one of us. We just kind of like somehow we stayed looking like we were kids, but it's like, oh, I guess I'm just gonna be a tiny hobbit for most of my life.
Well, I grew wider, anyways, not necessarily taller.
Yeah, yeah. Well, now you're fit to scale. You're fit to ratio.
I don't even know what is this ratio of which you speak. I'm definitely need to stop growing quite so much in the stomach, but that's a whole other podcast.
Yeah,
Now we'll get the nutritionist on. We can get some sponsorship with that
yeah.
type of
We love it.
supplement.
Yeah,
As like Tim Hortons donuts.
Tim Hortons donuts. Oh man, apparently they're in the States. I think they have it here now, where it's like a chicken sandwich, but it's like two donuts or the bun now, and they got like pickles and all this other shit. Apparently, it's really good, but I'm just like that's not going to be good at all for later. I'm thinking of the punishment you'd have to deal with the next morning.
Just as long as so long as you got a good toilet, you'll probably be okay. I'm sure coming out, it will be an interesting experience, but that's true for a lot of fast food. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, no, it always looks good, but then you have to deal with it in the morning. It's like having beer goggles for food in so many ways.
So what's been going on? You got the Mer Brothers shirt on. I'll be back to
Oh yeah, yeah,
uh
yeah.
doing any stand-up?
Yeah, so I wore this specifically for you because I guess another full disclosure, guys. So what happened was the Comedy Quarry, the comedy club in Windsor, it was called the Comedy Quarry, then Haddon's after its late owner passed away. They renamed it. It was open for like a year and a half, and then it closed back down. Excuse me. But what happened was they would have an open mic on Thursday nights, and there was not really too many open mics in the city. So Cam and I and a few of our other friends, we would go to this little hole in the wall bar called Maroon Brothers. And they would have an open mic there. And so a couple of my friends to this day, I think Cody and Connor, shout out to those two guys, and Leanna too. I just seen her the other day. They would host it and they'd have musicians or whoever come up there. And Cam and I, like, we're used to just doing straight stand up and everything, but what we would do is we would not really do like kind of a who's on first thing, but we would just kind of take a topic and just riff back and forth. And one of them was like about, I think it was mud wrestling too, where he said, neither one of us are good at mud wrestling because we'd be stuck in the kiddie pool or something like that. I forget how it goes, but we just go back and forth and fucking, the audience wouldn't know what to do for the first couple minutes, but then as we keep going on, just riffing off the crowd and shitting on each other, they'd eat it up.
We should have done mud wrestling. That would have got the views.
Yeah, yeah, more than anything any of us have ever done. I think
That would have made us. That would have made us internet famous for sure. We'd be millionaires by now.
yeah, it would just be me fucking turtling on my back, not being able to get up, and fucking Cam putting me in a headlock and a leg lock, ironically a leg lock.
It's worth it for the views, man. Do it for the content, you know? It's all about getting those views up, bro. So, you know, if people
Yeah.
comment and say they want to see us mud wrestle, I'm sure we can make it happen. What do we need? Just a pit of mud, right? It's not that hard to find.
Yeah, and a camera and no self dignity. And then I think we're already past that, so we're good.
We've already got all of those things. We're
Yeah,
comedians, so we
yeah.
don't have any we don't have any self dignity or self respect of any sort. And then we can use my phone. We got the camera. There we go. We're all set.
Dude, we're a 5-star recruit. A 5-star recruit of fucking mud wrestling. That should be a whole thing. Disabled mud wrestling. We'd be cornering the market in so many ways.
Well, we would be the first, but then the big corporations would come along with their
Sponsorship.
soulless corporate identity, and they would take it over, and then they'd be recruiting, and then people wouldn't be doing it for the love of disabled mud wrestling. They'd be doing it for the money, and then the whole thing would just become a corporate wasteland of disabled mud wrestling.
Then we have like a behind the music for disabled mud wrestling. We'd like, it'd be like fucking Fat Vince Neil now doing a documentary on Motley Crue. It's just like us in 10 years.
We got into it for the love of disabled mud wrestling, but these new people, they're only in it because they want to be stars.
They want to be stars, they go over the top just to be like, look at me. Like they'd slide through the mud like a slip and slide.
They're not, and then you have the non-disabled people mud wrestling. See, this is what always happens. What always happens, it starts out for the love of the art, and then it ends up just being a corporate, a soulless corporate entity. We'd all be sponsored.
Yeah, dude, we have to resist the temptation. We gotta get those numbers up. So we just get sponsors and a Patreon, and we don't need nobody. We can just do it on our own.
I feel like that's the type of but isn't that its own? Doesn't that present its own kind of biases too?
Yeah, they all do.
That's the trick about like YouTube, right? Is like infamous for this, right? Like if you're like new, quote unquote, new media, so like the Hill Rising or like Breaking Points or any of those, you're always like shitting on CNN, Fox News. You're all, because it's like, oh, they're the corporate media and they've got their sponsors and stuff. We, all of our money comes from the general public and small donors, so therefore we're more trustworthy. But based on what the general public seem like idiots too, it's not as though they're necessarily like that has its own set of biases in it too.
True. If you're looking at it from a ratio standpoint, you have however many people in a room, there's gonna be a few people that have a fucking distorted point of view, or because of their experiences or whatever. I know I'm looking off in the distance like somebody's holding a gun to me. It's like,
It's
what
your
is it?
Patreon sponsors, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
once you're on Patreon, and let's say you're getting significant funds from it, suddenly you have a bias towards posting content that's popular with those people, right? Or just
yeah.
whatever posting content that is popular with your viewership in general, which is no different than
Them being
CNN, like a
to a
corporate
shareholder, because your
entity.
shareholders are your audience. I can see the correlation you made there. It's definitely something
Yeah,
to that. I don't know. I think it's a bit more grassroots, and I like that. You could talk more directly as opposed to fucking just having talking points and this and that. Like, I don't know. We always get along because I think I like people who are not the opposite of me, because we were talking about this during the break. I think not agreeing to disagreeing, but if you agree with everybody all the time, everywhere, that's a fucking boring ass life. You never learn anything. And some of my greatest friendships and bonds that I formed are people that I might have some similarities, like similar tastes with music and activities and hobbies, but we don't agree on every. Who the fuck agrees on everything, and who the fuck wants to? It's so boring. Like you don't. Nothing ever happens when you just agree with people on everything. It's exhausting. Like that's a tribal kind of a mentality. It hinders growth, in my opinion. What do you think?
yeah, that's the problem, right? With social media in general, or kind of YouTube, and I want to talk. I'm on it all the time. Go to my podcast, etc., etc. But like, yeah, your like it used to be that a good, the rules seem to have been like as bland as possible, and therefore you're like inoffensive to as many people in the country as possible, especially if you look at TV, right? You
Yeah,
weren't. You're just trying to be as apolitical and as a all it was all meant to be um something that could reach as wide an audience as possible. And then it started with cable news, I suppose, but it's definitely on YouTube now, where social media, where you don't need to have more than half the country like you. You don't even need to have like a large plurality of people like you. If you have 300,000 people in the country who love you, and uh, by saying the things that they want you to say, and by saying things that that they'll agree with, you can earn a good living speaking to that minority, um, through YouTube and things like that, right? You couldn't do that back in the television days. You had to say things that would be broadly popular with a large percentage of the population, which can make for kind of bland TV, I suppose. You didn't have political takedowns and stuff the way you do now.
maybe you'll appreciate this. I just hate that everything has to have a quote unquote message. Now, why does everything have to be a message, or like it's this? Why can't you just produce something that's authentic to you, that you enjoy? Because when you authentically are having fun with people, it resonates with the audience, and they want to support that. It's you could say it's escapism, it's this and that, but it's like that's why we are entertained. You could be influenced by regular life, but you don't want to hear the problems of every single day being fucking like you need to escape this shit somehow, dude. If you're plugged into the machine all the time, for lack of a better term, it's gonna fucking drain you of all your optimism and spirit and whatever.
Authenticity sells. I mean, that's probably where, say, like a Joe Rogan, um, like that probably accounts for a large portion of his success, right?
Sure.
Definitely. Like people respond to authenticity, and if somebody's being authentic, or at least really good at faking being authentic, uh, so you can't tell, they tend to respond to that pretty well. I mean, that seems to be true for almost any, certainly in the social media, YouTube, podcast sphere. It seems like authenticity is a major component to success.
Well, getting back to like what you and I were talking about in terms of how we kind of just riff off each other on stage. I think that like all the compliments we ever got from people in the audience or anybody that's seen us, I think our best show was at Villains when we were just like doing the improv games. And when what I talk about improv games, what Cam and I would do, and we would do this with some other comics and a couple of our other friends would play instruments. We would set up like musical chairs and and like we'd have to run around the musical chairs. So it's like Cam like on his hands and knees like kind of crawling around. And then there'd be me kind of shuffling over to the side, and there'd be whoever else is there. And then we play the music, and whenever the music would stop, we have to sit on the chair. And there was more than a few times I would always try and go for my chair because I don't want to fucking sit or eat shit on the ground. So I almost intentionally lose sometimes just so I could stop playing because I didn't want to have to fucking endure the awkward moment when the music stops. Which chair do I select? But like people again. I think just the visual of it's just a hilarious visual. But some of the biggest compliments I got were that, or when I would do the sexual milk chocolate thing, or I'd be like this intentionally bad singer who'd like sing ballads and fucking just like riff on whatever.
People, yeah, people, and I do think it's probably pretty hard to fake it. I'm sure there are some people who are good at it, but like, being genuine, being authentic, people respond to that in whatever setting it is, whether it's the bar, doing an improv game, or whether it's on YouTube or TV or wherever it is. If somebody seems to be genuinely having a good time and being authentic themselves, they tend to, yeah, that's going to resonate with people. Right? You're going to get compliments. People will find you.
I agree, dude. Yeah, no. What was like? Actually, you know what? I'm gonna backtrack a little bit. Can you let the audience know what is the name of your disability or condition? And then we'll talk about the wrestling stuff in a bit, but I want to give them a background into who you are and where you come from.
Oh, God, nobody wants to know about anything about me, but it's
I do.
proximal femoral focal deficiency. Basically, I'm just missing my legs above the knee.
What's the full name? What's the full name?
Uh, proximal femoral focal deficiency.
Okay.
Now, I say that, keep in mind, I've never actually had that confirmed to me by anybody. That's just what my parents told me it was called. And I've said it ever since. They very well could have been making shit up. And they had no idea what it's called because you can't just
Did you
call it
ever
like,
think you were adopted just because they're like, I can't even spell this shit? I think they're making this up.
well, you can't just call it no legs. Like, I can't just go to my dad and be like, what do I have? And he just says no legs. You got to, but I feel like the doctor in the waiting room or the waiting room, wherever it is that the natal unit, wherever it is that, I started this journey called life, the doctor just had to come up with something to call what I had quickly. So that's just what they came up with because it feels very made up. But yeah, proximal femoral focal deficiency. Just I'm missing my legs above the knee, both of them.
Gotcha. So like because yeah, I know you've done plays before. You have a joke about you being in a play where you played the legless zombie and stuff like that. Like are you more like
Survive another day. Yeah, that was fun times.
surviving that was cortisone, right? Quarter Productions.
No, that was they're not around anymore. That was Windsor Theater.
Okay. Well, yeah, they're not around anymore either. Oh shit.
Court is not around anymore.
Oh, I mean like the Windsor Theater, right?
No, they met out of and now it's actually I've been there once since. It's a model railroad company, model train set place now. But it was in the Ottawa market, the Walkerville market. It was that's where they met. Or that's where they met. That's where they had their production. So I used to go there, remember, to for auditions and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, like I said, I think that's where I shot my special, and that's where we all kind of did our thing.
That's right. I've still got that DVD somewhere.
I do somewhere. I wanted to burn all of it, just fucking pour kerosene on all of it and forget it happened. Just like the part in Reservoir Dogs. If I could just wanted it to all go. I don't know. Looking back, I was probably a little too inexperienced for that, especially compared to like what I know now. Just how to handle certain
My
things.
stuff was pretty good. don't burn my stuff.
Yeah, well, no, like honestly, like you guys are all fantastic. I was really happy to, I was really smart to book all you guys to go on before me because you definitely, at that point, I wouldn't say you carried the show, but you definitely like set me up perfectly. You really set the tone for what I wanted.
Who else was it? It was Helledu. It was
Yeah, it was Johnny P, you,
Jeter.
Mike Jeter, Tim Bailey, and then me. Yeah, so four openers.
What's happening with Jeter? Is he still performing?
Yeah, he's back, dude. He's back. He's up in Michigan. I see his stuff all the time. He's great, man. He's headlining and
Nice.
everything. He's fantastic. Like it's like
Good job, Michael Jeter.
Michael G. Shout out Chocolate Bear Hug. I don't know if you still have that company, but I still have that fucking shirt. So I'm expecting royalties. God damn it! I'm just playing. I love Michael Jeter, man. Got so lucky.
Yeah, cool. I'm sure he's on YouTube and stuff. Look him up. Geeter, Michael Jeter.
Yeah, I know that this podcast should be called Two Aging Guys with Disabilities Reminisce. That's what it should be called.
Two ancient guys.
Two aging guys with disabilities reminisce. I don't know. We're still young bucks. We still got a lot to offer, but you know, we've had a couple wars. We had some shit under our belt.
I don't know if I call them wars exactly. There was some fun times in the whole thing. But yeah, no, that was a good times at Windsor Theater. So yeah, I was Legless Zombie, and then that's right, I did your play there, or your special at the DVD floating around somewhere. So it was fun. Now it's you ever go back there? Now it's a model railroad club. So they've taken over the space.
There's a lot of elderly fat dudes with train conductor hats. So one of the safe one of the hippest places in town. It sounds like.
That's where you go if you want to have a good time.
Exactly. Party at the train set station place. I don't even know if that's a real thing. Train set station place. That was a lot.
This podcast is setting the world on fire, isn't it? Let me tell you,
It's what?
Maxine's podcast has nothing on this one.
Hell no, dude.
We're gonna get so many more views.
A million more views, dude. It's gonna blow the show out of the water.
That's right.
It's gonna be our chocolate rain, you know, compared to the other ones. For an old YouTube reference. So yeah.
I don't know that. What's the reference?
You've never seen Chocolate Rain? Do I have to play this right now? I will. Oh,
I've never seen Chocolate Rain.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. We can end the show with that. I think that'll be the perfect way to end. I could show a little bit of your CBC interview too. Oh yeah, speaking of which, so I know that you love wrestling. It's like a big passion for you. And you know, I like a bit more UFC stuff and like a little more like combat in that regard. But I always have a soft spot in my heart for wrestling because I think it's, you know, you don't realize, but you do get older. It's yeah, these guys are still athletes and it's still doing risky shit. Even if like some of it's choreographed, it's still very intrinsic with the moves that they're doing and what they're doing. So what fascinates you about wrestling, and what made you want to kind of pursue a career, like because you're doing more of the amateur circuit. I know I've seen you in Impact Wrestling. You're the referee. It's honestly it's one of the most seamless transitions when you slide into the ring, because like people literally don't see you coming into the ring sometimes. I'm like, oh fuck, that's Cameron.
That's how that gets them by surprise, right? I honestly don't even know what it was about wrestling that first got me into it, except it was just so ubiquitous growing up. You know, it was on all the time. It was kind of part of the. It was just kind of part of you know the world in which I grew up. It was so prevalent in the '80s, especially you know being from Canada, Winnipeg. Like my connection to wrestling always started out with just WW, well F at the time, right? And I remember Hulk Hogan, um, and being a big fan of him when I was very young, and then transitioning and becoming a huge fan of Bret Hart. Still my favorite wrestler of all time, Bret the Hitman Hart. Um, it was just so, like I said, it was so ubiquitous and such a part of the culture. And every you know, especially every you know boy in school would watch wrestling and we'd talk about it the next day. And I went right through into high school. You know, I was in high school during the Attitude Era, which was The Rock and Austin and all of that. So I can't say, like, I can't remember the specific moment where, you know, I became a fan of it per se. It just felt like it was just always part of my life. And there was always a station that would be showing a main event or, you know, highlights for main event or Saturday morning wrestling or something going on. Uh, I remember, um, you know, I have the memories from it that imprinted in your mind. Like, you know, I remember seeing, you know, Hulk Hogan slam Andre the Giant, and how can that not make an impression on you, right? They're like these giant, you know, it's like a comic book come to life, right?
Yeah.
And that's what Hulk Hogan always was really good at, in my opinion. He wasn't, yeah, maybe not the most realistic wrestler or anything like that, but he was, you know, he was like a superhero.
Well, everybody knows if you're a fantastic wrestler, it'll automatically translate into a lucrative movie career, such as Hulk Hogan's. Santa with muscles, get out of here, dude. Nothing better.
Well, yeah, Hulk Hogan's maybe movie didn't turn out so great, but hey, I've never been in any movies, so good for Hulk Hogan. You know, he's been in more than me, and some of them were pretty good. You know, I always thought No Holds Barred I liked, but then moving on to Bret Hart, who was just such an amazing wrestler, and so technically adept. You know, and watching his stuff, that's when I started to watch professional wrestling more as a sport or an athletic endeavor, if that makes sense, more as something um, that, you know, as opposed to watching it when I was really young, almost the same way maybe kids today watch like a Marvel movie. You know, I watch Bret Hart matches more the way you may watch a football game or a boxing match or any type of athletic contest, because that's what Bret always made his stuff feel like. Watching it, it felt like it was um, a legitimate, which it is, right? An athletic endeavor. And even though, yes, people talk about it's choreographed and it's scripted, right? It still is at its core. Um, it's an athletic endeavor first and foremost. I mean, those guys really are, you know, the professional wrestlers really are some of the, you know, best trained athletes in the world. And then combined with that, they're also people. I think a lot of people now recognize um, the athletic attributes you need to be a wrestler. But I think the one thing people still don't realize is the intelligence needed to be a professional wrestler, or at least the intelligence that goes into crafting and putting together a match, right? Because, you know, you have whatever time you have. It could be 5 minutes, it could be 10 minutes, it could be 20 minutes. Whatever the time is, you have a certain length of time to go out and tell a story, and you're telling that story live and in front of people. And so you have to be able to understand, and you have to have the intelligence to be able to understand what people will respond to, how they'll respond to it, and then how to play on that to get the reaction you want.
Yeah.
And to make sure that you're telling a story that people can follow and become invested in, whether that story is meant to make them cheer or meant to make them boo or meant to make them happy or sad or angry or laugh. You know, whatever it is you're trying to do, you as the professional wrestler, you're trying to connect with that audience and make them feel something. And that takes, you know, the one thing I probably took away from professional wrestling training, and this is from my first coach, Johnny Devine. You know, he said, it's not just because you can do something. You know, the key is, can you tell me like why you're doing it? So, you know, yeah, I can do you know, 7,000 flips or whatever it is, and jump up and do something, but you have to be able to put that in a match in a point that makes sense and that you can explain why you're doing it when you're doing it. And that's something that to life, right? It's why are you, I'm getting some feedback.
Oh yeah, no, I think it's because my connection was delayed. Sorry to cut you off. No, I was just because you spoke about the more technical aspects of wrestling. Like for the layman, what do you mean by the technical aspects? Just how to maneuver so you won't injure yourself, or is there like if somebody's going off the top rope, or if they're trying to flip somebody or clothesline somebody, is there a way to do it? Maybe like what do you mean by the technical aspect?
Yeah, there's always a way to do these things. So the technical aspect of it is it's little things, but it's like the placement of your hands when you're putting somebody into a headlock.
Mhm.
And obviously, and then the placement of your feet when you're running the ropes, and the placement of just how to place and move your body in such a way that you are executing the moves correctly and you're in control of the moves, and you are not um, hurting yourself, certainly, but more importantly, that you're protecting your opponent. Because so obviously some moves are showy and razzle dazzle and things of that nature, right? But you look at, say, chain wrestling, like at the end of the day, professional wrestling is based on amateur wrestling, right? It's about grabbing a leg, grabbing an arm, grabbing a hold, taking a guy down to a mat. And there are correct ways and incorrect ways to do that, right?
Yeah.
And if you're doing it incorrectly, so if you're not grabbing a hold properly, if you're not placing your hands the way they would be placed in an amateur wrestling match, if you're not moving the way an amateur wrestler would move, um, that people see it, and then it kind of, it's harder to suspend disbelief, right? Like a little thing is when you're grabbing chin lock, whatever it is, right? Uh, like this is the proper way to grab a hold. This can be a proper way. You never grab like this, right? Then the guy in a quote unquote real fight could just grab your fingers and squeeze them. So it's just hand placement, the way you
It looks
place
like
your hands, the way you move.
it looks like you're about to say grace and bless the food, or like pray to a higher power when you do that. But it doesn't
Grabbing like
really.
this, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Never
yeah,
exactly.
yeah. It doesn't really invoke, a move like that. Next question is because this kind of relates to what you're talking about with the grappling moves. What's the most realistic or seamless wrestling move you've ever seen live, or just like what stands out the most to you? Because I'm sure there's a move where you're like, damn, like that looks like it could be used not just used in a real fight, but it looks so seamless with the body type and just the flared head.
Well, I mean, all of it could be used in a quote unquote real fight. To different degrees, right? Like, if you look at, say, uh, like even like shooting somebody off, right? Like, if you're a big dude and you grab somebody and you yank their arm and push their back, they're going to go. They're going to go where you want them to go. If you're a big enough guy, I would say. Well, I mean, so it's that combination, right, of realism and looking seamless. So we talked about, my favorite wrestler, Bret Hart. To me, the sharpshooter always stands out. It was such a cool finishing move, and the way he was able to utilize it from a variety of different settings, right? I mean, he put Mr. Perfect in the sharpshooter from his back. He put Yokozuna, who was like 450, 500 pounds
Yep.
in it, WrestleMania 9. Like,
Wasn't he a legit sumo wrestler?
no,
No.
he was Samoan. He's
Oh,
actually, he passed away, but he's related to part of the Anoit family. He was Samoan, but apparently it was Sergeant Slaughter's idea to make him Samoan. But
yeah.
and then if you look now, like there are so many wrestlers. I'm biased, obviously, but so many wrestlers in Impact Wrestling who are just killing it. Like you want to talk about being legit and legitimate and what that means. Impact Wrestling's Josh Alexander might be, he's definitely one of the best wrestlers working today. And he has a lot of that Bret Hart type of qualities in him, and that everything he does looks legitimate. I mean, he is a legit wrestler. He knows how to grapple, he knows how to move. You believe it when you see him go, the things that he's doing. And then Impact Wrestling has an amazing knockouts division. Deanna Peraza, we've got Kenny Omega, who is with obviously All Elite Wrestling. Had those amazing series of matches with New Japan Wrestling. He is currently the Impact champion and the AAA champion and the AEW champion. So he's been part of the Impact show. So Impact Wrestling really is doing an amazing job right now with their roster and with their guys.
Yeah, I want to come out and see another show. Like I haven't watched wrestling since I've been like 14 or around that age. But when I saw you at Impact at the college, that's when I was like, oh shit, this is actually a whole production. It's very involved, and I was impressed.
It is a production. I don't think that's probably one thing nobody realizes until they actually become a professional or start training. Like, I think I always imagined that, Vince McMahon or whatever just kind of snaps his fingers and a ring just appears in a stadium, just fully formed.
Yes,
you kind of know that it's not that way, but you don't really realize it until you're involved. Like the amount of work that goes into just the production side of wrestling, from, building and maintaining a ring, to promotion, to creating posters, to when you have television, you're adding all the production values that way, the cameramen, the lighting men, the sound men, the
why you say man? Why you say man like that? You said men. He's
camera person.
No, I'm not saying like why'd you say man? It's like it's her story, not his story. Not like that. You said men weird, like when somebody says Superman, Spider-Man.
It's my Winnipeg accent. All of the people involved in the production, it's a big thing, and that's an important thing to realize too. When you're a referee or a professional wrestler or whatever it is, right? Like you can be the best in the world, but if you don't have good sound and good lighting and good television production and good cameras catching your shit, that's doing a disservice to the fans and to you. So, my hats off to not only, and back to Impact Wrestling, right? My hats off not only to the amazing talent in Impact Wrestling that's in the ring working, but all the people behind the scenes who make it possible to see the show.
Yeah, there is no show without them, is there? And I think that became more exacerbated in 2020 when you couldn't have crowds in the audience, and they just had I'm talking about the major companies. I'm sure Impact was similar, but you couldn't have crowds in couldn't have crowds in the stands, so you had to like put people's like faces up on laptops and stuff. It was so bizarre to watch.
Well, that was Thunderdome. Yeah, that was an interesting. I mean, credit to them for thinking outside the box, and trying something new. It was tricky. I think every professional sport had to, deal with that however they could, right? And it's tough because it presents such a unique and different ambience for everybody. Like even UFC, I saw some interviews with some guys talking about, how different it is getting yourself hyped up for your fight when you're walking out to a live audience versus when you're walking out to nobody, and the difference it is. And from a fan's perspective, watching UFC was so different without fans. In some ways, it was better. Weirdly, like I never read, UFC, especially you heard every punch and every kick so crisp there were no fans as compared to when the fans came back. It's just, it was a different atmosphere. It's really, I'm not saying, I'd rather, obviously, there was no such thing as COVID and all that, but it was an interesting to see the way in which sports teams and companies and industries adapted to kind of the changing world.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was pretty much everywhere. So I don't know. I just thought that was fascinating how they had to pivot this year. But obviously, I think it's better with the fans. The UFC was interesting though because it kind of felt like an Ultimate Fighter, like kind of like a bonus episode of the Ultimate Fighter when you watch those events. Just to kind of like you have nobody there, you just have your teammates, and I think one of the I think I forget which fight it was. Damn it, I think it was like the middle or welterweight division. This guy was fighting him, and like he said, "Yo, listen to Joe Rogan." When he was on his back, I was like, "Listen to Joe Rogan," because he told him to like pivot or to kind of like reverse the maneuver. He's like, "Listen to him," because he could hear him. He's like 10 feet away, but it was clear as day. So it must have
It
been
was
bizarre.
it was such a unique. Um, it was a very unique. I think it's just a very unique experience altogether. But
Yeah,
UFC for sure, very interesting watching it, and you could you could hear guys talking to each other, trash talking. You could hear corners what they were yelling out and the advice they were giving a lot clearer. It was interesting. It was really interesting.
yeah. We're gonna wrap up soon because I know I'm gonna do your show next. I promised I would do that, and I'd be honored to. Do you have any questions for me before we close up? And is there anything you want to plug or for me to share?
I don't have any questions now, only because I'm about to talk to you
Okay.
for my show. So, uh, you know, thanks for having me on. Check out my podcast. We're on Compass, all that good jazz. You can throw a link if you want in the description, maybe, or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. Send me the link.
Just on your end, I guess what I'd say is I'm happy you're doing the podcast because you've got two of them, right? And I'm
Yeah,
happy I saw on Facebook that you're back to performing. I think you had a performance at Fog.
I did every Monday at Fog Lounge in Windsor. It's Mondays. The open mic starts at 9:30, depending on who's hosting. But yeah, I try and get up there at least middle of the show, like earlier in the show, because the list fills up super quick. But there's maybe 15 people in the crowd. It was a it was an odd energy, like not in like not that it was peculiar, it was just odd because people were back and it was a bit subdued because it was like a holiday, so things are a bit more chill. But when I got up there, it was like riding a bike, man. Like I drank a bunch of caffeine. I fucking made sure I was in the right headspace, and I just went. You know, and I think
Good.
yeah, I've been listening to other comics' philosophy about what they're going to talk about when they go up on stage, and have been a lot more in tune with who I want to be because you can emulate and copy. I think that's one of the steps is that you start like as an impression of your favorite whoever, then you emulate, and then you figure out who you are. In the end, that's the final step. So I think
Who's your favorite comic uh, working
oh,
right now?
working right now. Okay, yeah, because I've answered that question a million times. So I'm kind of sick of answering it. I have a few, dude. I really like Sam Morril's joke writing, and he's got like every aspect of the game. He can riff. He's got great jokes, fantastic, like just very subdued approach, very laid back. I like that where he can just say more outrageous shit because of his delivery. David Lucas, the guy in Kill Tony's fantastic. He's a great roaster, another great joke writer. Big J, Big J Okerson rather, great crowd work guy. Yeah, it's just it depends on what it is. It's kind of not to use it like a cliche rep, not to equate in a cliche way, but it's kind of like music and different genres. There's different genres of what I want in specific days. I do like most of it. I don't say I'm gonna like it all because I'd be disingenuous, but I do like most of the newer shit that's going out there. It's very innovative and it makes me feel fucking lazy. So I gotta step up my game a little more. And I want to be the best version I can be. And you were a part of that because every time we do shows together, you'd push me, you know. So I appreciate that.
You were always good. I mean, I'm sure you still are. I haven't seen any live comedy like yourself or anybody else forever. But I mean, you always, you know, you always got laughs, and you're always really fun to work with and cool to hang out with. So,
Yeah,
I mean, I remember the days like, Freddie, what was her name? Freddie?
yeah. Well, we'll call her Freddie. We'll call her Freddie. I don't want to blow up her spot, but
I
yeah,
think there was a bunch of, there was like John P. and there was,
yeah. Mike Jeter. I ran to Jarrett the other day. Jared Sorko. He's doing pretty good. He's got an adult job. That's pretty.
what's he up to?
He's got like an adult job. I don't know exactly what he does. It's something in finance, but he's doing quite well. And we had a lot of chuckles over a few beverages the other night. So he's doing quite well, man. And even so, like there's a whole new class now that's coming up that I really am excited for. You know, I think when we're allowed to do shows for real, I think that this. I said it on previous shows. We're like in the caterpillar stage, and we're going to give birth to a beautiful butterfly when it's all said and done. If this shit doesn't kill you, it's going to enhance you and make you stronger, and increase your fortitude for putting out good shit. And if you do that, I'll support you. And we're all for that down here.
Look at you with your optimism and your happiness.
Hey, you know, I can be miserable any other time of day, but people don't come here for that. They come here for the debauchery and the fucking insanity that is this show, Wheelin and Dealing. Yeah, I'd love having you on, Cam. You're the man, dude. Again, you're one of my earlier. I don't know if I would say you're a mentor, but you're definitely a peer that I respect and who, like I said, always pushed me. And you know, when my mind was feeling kind of groggy or I couldn't do it that day, I always fucking pushed forward. So just hang on the line for a little bit. We're gonna do your show in just a second. Yeah, if you wanna follow Cam, what are your links, Cam? Just the Square and Compass podcast.
Oh my gosh. So there's so many darn social media. So Twitter, at compass_square. Instagram, I've got a whole bunch. I just started 2 new Instagram pages because my favorite thing in the world is Freemasonry. Um, well, I I don't know, maybe you probably feel this way about comedy. Um, like there's nothing I both love and hate more than Freemasonry, if that makes any sense, right? Like I
Complicated.
I very much love what I think it could be and what I think it should be, but I sometimes get frustrated by perhaps where it is as to where I think it ought to be. But anyways, I just bring that up to say the one thing I love about Freemasonry and also makes me very sad is we have, throughout the world, North America, Europe, pick your spot, we have some absolutely amazing Masonic buildings, Masonic architecture throughout North America. And sadly, oftentimes these buildings can be lost. They can be sold. They can become abandoned. So I started a couple of Instagram pages, Masonic Buildings 1 and Masonic Building Interiors 1. And that's just meant to try to celebrate and document as many Masonic temples and buildings as I can. So if you're a fan of architecture and history and you like historical architecture or just any type of architecture, I mean, some Masonic temples are relatively, they're small and they're modern and were built in the last 20, 30 years. But many of them date to the 1920s and before. Check out those 2 pages if you like that type of stuff. And I'm on Facebook, Square Compass Essex, and then YouTube. I've got my main channel, my clips channel, and you'll be on some of those very soon.
Right on, buddy. Right on. Yeah, gotta get that out of the way. You guys know where to follow me. If you're watching this on my YouTube, hit that like and subscribe button. Every little bit helps, and I appreciate the positive feedback I've been getting, it has been pretty positive overall. Instagram at Dave Squeaky Wheels, DAVESQUEAKY Wheels with a Z. Same thing with Facebook at D Squeaks, SQUEAKZ. Let's see. Yeah, that's mostly that. I don't really do Twitter that much, so we'll just leave that shit out. Yeah. Anyways, you guys, I appreciate you for listening to this episode of Wheelin and Dealing. This episode will be out, I guess, a week from now, Cam. So we'll be hyping this as much as we can. I appreciate you for being on, my brother.
Yeah, you said, at the start you said I had no legs, but that's not completely true. It's actually a case that Dave Squeaky Wheels paid some guys to remove and steal my legs. They're currently in a fishbowl filled with formaldehyde. But if you can get, 500 views on this episode, I'll get them back. So the fate of my legs is in your hands.
One of those legs is going to turn into one of the monsters from Stranger Things.
Well, not if I get it back, if we get enough views and likes and stuff.
Yeah,
see what Dave will do see how this happens. David's so needing of these views that he paid some guy to steal limbs from me.
I think it's a French Montana song where like they'll do anything for clout. They'll do anything for clout, I don't know if I do
So
anything.
For heaven's sakes, please watch this video. I need my legs back at some point.
I know.
I can't.
Yeah,
they're rotting in the bathtub from formaldehyde.
You can only have it on ice for so long. I agree, dude. And especially like this conversation, I'm about to put this on ice. So thank you so much, guys, for listening. Wrist it and give me 1 sec, Cap. I'm just gonna stop right now. See you guys after. Bye bye.